Welcome to Fueled by Strengths, a podcast and videocast about how we can live more authentically, be our best selves, and find more meaning and purpose in what we do, with a goal to thriving and flourishing in our personal and professional lives. I'm Becky, Strength Scope practitioner and career fulfillment coach, and I'm here to share insights, stories, tools, and coaching practices with you that can be used to help us become more balanced, confident, and empowered in our careers. So I'm starting with a story today about a time I felt stuck in my job and in my career in general. I'm going to talk through my experiences. I'm going to share with you my emotions during that time. And then I'm going to share with you the reasoning, the explanation as to why it was I was feeling that way and why it was I was experiencing those thoughts. And then hopefully, with a little bit more explanation, I'm going to talk us through how we can get ourselves unstuck. And the practices that I now do on a regular basis, actually a daily basis, to support me to avoid ever getting so stuck again, and to keep me in that more positive space that I want to be in, and that's just a healthier space for me to flourish and thrive on a day-to-day and in my professional life. So my experience is I was in a job. It was a new job. I left the education industry, or I left the classroom as a teacher. I'd been there for over 6 years in various schools and various colleges. And I was looking for a change, so I was excited about that. I was excited to be starting a job that was giving me that flexibility to be a remote worker. I was excited to be out of the full-time face-to-face environment, because I had already realized that was a draining place for me to be. So I was like, okay, I'm in the education industry still. I'm still in my field of knowledge and my field of passion, but I'm taking more of a back office role, so to speak. And I was really looking forward to that. I was like, I've got so many skills that I can bring with me, but I'm just going to be able to go at a pace that meets me. So there I was, starting my new job. My team were very welcoming. My manager was in really high spirits that I was joining the team, that I was sort of ex-teacher and had all this knowledge to bring. And it was a really nice start. I was confident that it was going to work, and so on and so forth. So it started really well. Unfortunately, it wasn't long until I started to feel like I wasn't very good at what I was doing. I was losing my confidence quite rapidly, and I was really questioning my capabilities to actually perform the role and to perform my responsibilities. And I found myself in a really, really negative place. And I was negatively spiraling about literally everything that I was asked to do. For example, I'm asked to, join in on a new project, which in hindsight should have been really exciting, a really great chance to excel in what I was doing, show what I was made of, bring my skills, grow the company, because it was a new company as well. But I was just seeing the problems. I was just seeing the threats. I became very defensive. I became really drowned by my negative emotions. I was constantly in this space of negative thoughts. It led to a real lack of trust. I felt like I was completely on my own in my team, that I didn't really have anyone I could turn to support me. It obviously negatively impacted my relationships in my team, and I was just sort of dwelling in this, lack of self-confidence, real self-doubt, and there wasn't really a way out. I was very, very powerless, and I thought, well, is this it? Is this what's happened now that I've left, the classroom? Is this what my working life's going to be? Constantly feeling, completely out of my depth, struggling to keep up, not able to have positive relationships, and so on and so forth. So I was in this really, really negative place, and anything that added to my plate took me further down into this negative spiral. Basically what I want to share today is that all of those things that I was experiencing in that job were actually really quite normal. Were really quite normal human responses. And when I learned that, I really gave myself a bit of self-compassion. When I realized that what I was experiencing was, a natural human reaction to situations, I let myself off the hook. And I was then able to focus on what it was that I needed to do to support myself, to get unstuck, and to stay in that place of positivity. And if I was ever feeling like I was going to this place of stuckness again, I knew what to do. I knew what I needed to tell myself. I knew the strategies that I needed to employ so that I could move myself quickly from that state of helplessness, state of negative emotions that were starting to taking over my actions and behavior, and move myself into a more solutions-focused environment. Okay, so I'm drawing your attention now to what's called the negativity bias. Okay, and I'm gonna sort of really try and explain it in a way that makes sense to everybody. So the negativity bias is basically something that is part of our evolution. And if we're thinking, way back in the Stone Age, when we were in caves, we were hunting, we were fending for our lives against wild animals, and we were in need of having something that protected us when we needed to survive. Okay, so you might have heard of survival mode before, or fight or flight mode. Okay, this is where our negativity bias came in useful, because when we found ourselves in a situation that presented some difficulty, for example, we were analyzing it as a threat and as a problem and listening to our negative emotions, because that was going to help us understand that we needed to flee the situation. We needed to, click into that survival mode so we can protect ourselves. Fast forward thousands and thousands and thousands of years to the present day, and the negativity bias is still part of our human makeup, but it's not as handy and it's not as useful as it was back then. Because if we think back to the experience, the story that I just shared in my job, I was moving into this, I was in this negativity bias, this negative state, when I was asked to do a piece of work. I mean, that's not a threat to my survival. That's not a real problem. That is something that is very much solvable. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's totally normal for us to have these more immediate negative responses to situations, okay? It is actually what we are wired to do as humans, okay? We are wired to focus more of our attention on the negative aspect of something, and really sort of focus in on that and actually dwell on that, okay? That's actually part of our normal state of being. However, there is a positive to this, because we actually do have the capabilities to move from the negativity bias, okay, from this more negative state, and see things in this more positive, opportunistic, solutions-focused light, which is actually more helpful to us. It actually serves us more in the present day, because we very, very rarely find ourselves in situations where we need our negativity bias to kick in, because we need to get into that survival mode, okay? So drawing your attention now to the model that you'll see in the description. It's an image or a link that you can click on, and basically it's a mindset model developed by StrengthScope, and it's kind of a really nice illustration. It really supported me when I was in that stuck place, when I saw it for the first time. Gave me that really nice visual of what happens when when our negativity bias is taking over. And StrengthScope's calling it the path of limitation. And when you're on this path of limitation, it's when your negative state is depicting your actions, your behaviors, and your negative emotions are completely taking over you. Okay, and it's a real good description of the place that I was in that job, in that experience that I shared. Everything was just too difficult. Everything was a problem. I was, swallowed by my negative emotions. They were controlling me. And it led to this, negative, real decline in my relationships. Couldn't figure out how to connect. And couldn't see a way out. This helplessness, this powerlessness. I had no confidence and so much self-doubt that this was it. There was no way out. There was no other option. Whereas what we can actually support ourselves to do, okay, and it is definitely, something that I've had to work on, train myself, make it become a habit, and it's something that I practice on a regular basis. And in the beginning, it was a daily basis that I needed to practice it so that it became more ingrained. And honestly, now I can say that I'm saying a 7 out of 10, but I actually think that I'm doing myself a bit of an injustice by saying that. It's an 8 out of 10 in terms of when a situation arises and my first instinct is, my negative cognitive bias taking over and seeing the problem, seeing the threats, my negative emotions starting to take play. And sort of perhaps bubbling this sort of lack of self-confidence and self-doubt. When that starts to happen, 8 out of 10 times, I am so quick at moving to the path of possibility, because I've nurtured it. I've spent a little bit of time on it so that it's more embedded, more ingrained, so that I can support myself to swiftly move into that more positive space, which StrengthScope calls the path of possibility, okay? And it just sounds so much nicer. You're not getting in your own way and limiting yourself of where you can go. Everything opens up. Everything now becomes a possibility when you're in that space. So when I get to that path of possibility now, I'm starting to look for what I can do. in that situation? What is it that I do have in my control right now? I'm looking at my strengths that I can bring to this situation to either support me or be my best self in this situation. And that naturally just eases things. It makes things lighter. It enables and allows those positive emotions in. And it opens everything up, like I said. So, now I can make decisions with a clear head, not my actions and behaviors not controlled by my emotions. My relationships stay positive because I'm not feeling sort of this mistrust and that it's a threat and that it's a problem all the time. And you feel so empowered and so in control of anything that comes your way. And it's true. I'm a real advocate for this. And I was so envious of people that could see things in more of a positive light. I always thought that I was someone I was a pessimist, hated to use the word pessimist, so called myself a realist, but I knew I wasn't an optimist. And that wounded me. I really struggled with that label. And I was really jealous of people that could see things more clearly for what they were. Accept their emotions, make a decision, take the opportunity from a situation. I was like, how are you doing that? And I can honestly say 80% of the time I am now that person. And I did not think that could ever happen. So I want to share with you now some strategies that I used and still use to really embed that positive mindset that I want to be in and that I know serves me and supports me and enables me to be the person that I want to be and show up in the way that I want to show up and not be completely crushed and completely in this stressed negative state when I really don't need to be. So I'm now going to walk us through the strategies that I use. And I have got some notes here because I feel they're so important to share, and I want to make sure that I'm sharing them because they really did benefit me and still do to this day. And I'm so grateful that I became aware of it, became aware of this negativity bias that I do have. I have a stronger tendency for, and I've accepted that now, and that's made such a huge difference. And it's actually both enabled me and empowered me to be able to move into that more positive space, that path of possibility, like that, the strength scope mindset model. This negativity bias doesn't serve me in a lot of situations, but there's no point getting even more down about it, dwelling on the fact that I already dwell on things, and sort of just starting to see things for what they are and see things for these sort of opportunities and what I can bring and what I do have control over. And it really has it's changed my life because it's opened up so many doors for me. I feel so much more confident as a person, and my relationships, which was a really big thing that took a hit, my relationships have really flourished as a result. And I have so much more confidence in both my personal and my professional life. So I'm going to share with you these strategies that I do use because they might be useful. So the first one I want to talk about is something that I brought up in a video the other day, which is this 3-1 or 5-1 ratio. Okay, it's actually called the Lasada ratio because it was originally from a psychologist, Lasada, but it's sort of easier to label it as the positive to negative ratio. So we actually need as an absolute minimum 3 positive interactions to negate, to work against the 1 negative interaction that we have. So that's as a minimum 3-to-1 positive to negative ratio. Okay, we're actually looking for 5-to-1 if we can, particularly in our relationships, our personal relationships. We need a 5-to-1 positive to negative to ratio. And what that means is that because our negativity bias is so strong, and we do humanly spend more time focusing on those negatives, we need 3 and best case scenario 5 to outweigh that. Okay, and that just makes so much sense to me, because if you think about, that feedback that you get from your manager at work, or a colleague or a peer, you get some feedback and perhaps it's a little bit negative, it's taken you aback, you felt a little bit rejected, you feel quite defensive, you feel like, oh, they're questioning my ability to do my job, aren't they? And you dwell on that. Okay, as I said, so natural to do. We need 3, minimum 3, 5 best case scenario positive interactions to outweigh that 1. Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing this up as like a tool or a strategy that I use, we've really got to internalize and savor those positive moments, those positive interactions that we do experience, because it's just supporting our brain to focus on the positive, basically, so we don't overdwell on the negative when we really don't need to. So practicing, being in the moment. You might have heard of mindfulness before. It's that idea of really being in the moment, but particularly when you're experiencing something positive, savor it. Okay, really interact with your senses in that experience. And when you've had a positive interaction with someone, particularly if it's a personal relationship that you really value, and you've had a positive interaction with them, go away and reflect on it and really internalize it. I actually did this yesterday. I had a coaching session, and it was a really powerful and positive interaction that I had with my coach. And I, after the session, I reflected on it, and I internalized it. And I was like, what do I want to take from this experience so that it can just stay with me, carry with me? It's going to bring up my energy, and it's going to form a little bit of a bubbly barrier against perhaps any negative interactions or situations I come into. And it was honestly this wave just like came through me, and it was remarkable. And I was like, why am I not practicing this more? So it is actually a goal of mine as well to really focus on internalizing positive interactions. So that would be my sort of first strategy I'd like to share. The next one is about building my self-awareness. And that's been a really big thing for me that's been very helpful, particularly around my emotions. So it's about first of all, acknowledging my emotions that arise when I'm in this sort of, negative state. I experience a negative emotion, and I just allow it in. I'm sitting with it. I'm accepting it. I'm like, hey, you're here. Cool. I'm not doing anything with it. I don't want it to impact my next decision, my next action, my next behavior, because it will not serve me. And it potentially will have then, negative repercussions down the line, which is not what I want for myself or other people. So I acknowledge and I accept the emotion. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's enough to then move past it and start to think of ways that I can add to this situation. What is in my control. sometimes accepting and acknowledging the emotion is not enough, and I need to shake it out of me. Okay, so it's so important to acknowledge it, because emotions are so we need them, but it's just about recognizing that we don't want them to control our actions, particularly these negative emotions. So once we've accepted and acknowledging it, we might then need to, I might need to completely move into another space. I was speaking about this with a friend the other day, and sort of what really helps her is to physically move to a different space. So she's, really sort of taking herself out of that situation. And I really value that, particularly also, any sort of physical movement, which is sort of why I really like to focus on, staying fit, because having that physical activity really supports me to move out of these negative emotions, put them aside, and move into a space where I can accept positive emotions. So then that moves me to, again, within this sort of space of self-awareness, it's actually challenging the things that I'm saying to myself, which is huge, because I'm sure we all have said things to ourselves which are so unhelpful, and actually, quite detrimental to our own well-being. We're sort of self-sabotaging ourselves by saying these negative things, and so I'm challenging myself. A thought comes into my mind, and I'm like, hey, is that helpful? Is that serving me? No, put that to the side. So it's really connecting with what you're saying here, challenging that negative self-talk, and then seeing if you can reframe it. So I've spoken about reframing before as well. Seeing if you can, twist what you've just said in this negative way and reframe it in a way that is more positive and it's going to serve you. So for example, I've got too much work. She's just sent me something else to do. I can't handle it. This is ridiculous. I'm not doing it. All of these barriers, all of these limitations starting to pop up. Can I reframe that? Okay. That's just signaled to me that maybe I'm a bit stressed. Maybe I've got too much work on my plate. Maybe I just need to acknowledge this and get some support from a peer or my manager. Talk through what it is that I need to prioritize, so that I don't feel like it's such a threat when I'm given this other piece of work, So yeah, they're the three main things. Internalizing and savoring the positive moments in interactions, becoming self-aware of my emotions, really accepting and acknowledging them, and not letting them control my next action or my next behavior or even my next thought. And then this piece on challenging my negative self-talk and working on reframing that. And those three things have really helped me to move me out of that path of limitation and onto that path of possibility, so that I can start to see things as an opportunity, start to recognize my strengths, and start to really just be confident in my situations and in my interactions. So just something to finish on here is a bit of reflection of today's conversation. If you are someone that feels like your negativity bias is getting the better of you and really disempowering you and making you feel helpless and out of control, lacking control, that you can't be your best self and you can't see a way out, then perhaps some of these strategies might start to support you to move from the path of limitation to the path of possibility. But I don't want to negate the fact that when things feel like they are too much on top of you, like they were for me, jumping into these strategies was not my first point of call. So, I really do. I'm an advocate for sharing it with people that you trust, your close relationships, and even other sort of ways of exploration or methods of exploration. Therapy, I've done that, counseling, and or coaching, to really support you to regain a little bit more strength, find that inner resource so that you're in a better place to see things more for what they are, and take on this more opportunistic approach that I've shared today. Okay, so I just thought that was important to share as well. And if you want to find out more about how I can support you you're in a crossroads in your career, or you're struggling with your own lack of confidence and feeling that stuckness that I was, then absolutely get in touch. We can have a call, discovery call, and talk through how I might be able to help you. Thanks for joining today's conversation. If you want to find out more about how I support women to thrive, check out my website at rbgstrengthscoaching.co.uk, on LinkedIn at /RBG Coaching, and on Instagram at rbg_coaching. Being my most confident, authentic self. Until next time.